Lisa Martinez stared at her computer screen in the quiet control room of Titan's watch. The space station floated far from Earth, watching the empty darkness between stars. Her job was simple but boring. She listened for radio signals from deep space, but usually heard nothing but static. Tonight felt different. A weak signal came through her equipment, so faint she almost missed it. At first, Lisa thought her machines were broken. The signal did not sound like anything she had heard before. It was not the random noise of space or signals from Earth's ship's dot. She turned up the volume and listened carefully. The signal repeated the same pattern over and over. Numbers, but not normal numbers. They were arranged in a way that seemed important. Lisa's heart began to beat faster. She had studied alien contact procedures in training, but never thought she would need them. Jake Thompson, the station commander, walked into the control room carrying a cup of coffee. He was a big man with gray hair who had spent 20 years in space. Jake looked tired after his long shift. "Still awake, Martinez?" he asked, sitting down at his desk. "Find anything interesting out there?" Lisa hesitated. She knew Jake would think she was crazy. "Commander, I'm picking up something strange. A signal from the Kepler 442 system." Jake laughed. "That's 40 light years away. Nothing out there but empty space and dead rocks." "Sir, I think you should listen to this." Lisa played the recording. The strange signal filled the room with its odd musical tones and number patterns. Jake's smile faded. He had heard many things in space, but nothing like this. Run it through the computer. Check for equipment problems. Lisa had already done that. Her equipment was working perfectly. The signal was real, and it was coming from deep space. She ran the signal through translation programs, looking for patterns that might mean something. Dr. Alex Rodriguez arrived an hour later. He was the station's science officer, a thin man with thick glasses who knew more about space than anyone else on the station. Alex studied the signal data on his tablet, while Lisa explained what she had found. "These numbers," Alex said quietly, "they're not random. Look at this sequence here. It's showing mathematical relationships. Prime numbers, pi, the golden ratio. Someone is trying to communicate using universal math." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying this is from aliens?" "I'm saying this is from someone who understands mathematics the same way we do. And they're trying very hard to get our attention." Lisa worked through the night, using every translation program the station had. Slowly, parts of the message became clear. The signal contained star maps, population numbers, and energy readings. Most importantly, it contained one word that appeared over and over in different ways. A word that seemed to mean help. By morning, the three of them had translated enough to understand the basic message. The signal was a distress call from a civilization under attack. The numbers showed billions of people in danger. The energy readings showed massive explosions and destruction on a scale that made human wars look like small fights. "How long has this been going on?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her data. "The signal has been repeating for 6 days. But it's getting weaker. The power source is failing." Alex studied the star maps included in the message. According to this, 3 planets in that system supported life. The signal is coming from the 3rd planet, but the other 2 have gone silent. Jake paced around the control room. In his 20 years in space, he had never faced anything like this. His training covered equipment failures, asteroid strikes, and medical emergencies. No one had prepared him for first contact with dying aliens. "What do we do?" Lisa asked. "We can't help them. They're 40 light years away. We report it," Jake said. "This is way above our level. Earth Command needs to know about this." But as Jake reached for the communication panel, Lisa's equipment started screaming with alarms. The alien signal was changing. The steady pattern of numbers was breaking apart, becoming chaotic and desperate. "What's happening?" Alex asked. Lisa's hands flew over her controls, trying to understand the new data. "The signal is fragmenting. It's like they're under attack right now. The transmission is cutting in and out." The three of them listened in horror as the alien signal became more desperate. Even without understanding the language, they could hear the panic and fear. The mathematical sequences were replaced by what sounded like screaming. Then, suddenly, the signal stopped. The control room fell silent except for the hum of equipment. Lisa tried to re-establish contact, but found nothing. The signal was gone. "There. Dead," Alex said quietly. "We just listened to an entire civilization die." Jake sat down heavily in his chair. His hands shook as he reached for the communication panel. "Earth Command, this is Titan's Watch. Priority Alpha transmission. We have a situation." As Jake began his report, Lisa stared at her empty screen. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, billions of people had just died. And Earth didn't even know aliens existed. Until today, she thought about the signal, about the mathematical beauty of the alien message, and the terror in their final transmission. Whoever had sent the distress call was gone now, but their message remained. They had reached across 40 light years of empty space to tell humanity that they were not alone in the universe, and that something out there was killing entire civilizations. Alex was already working on his computer, analyzing every bit of data they had collected. "We need to understand who did this," he said. "Because if they can destroy a civilization 40 light years away, they might come for us next." Jake finished his report to Earth Command and turned to his crew. "Pack everything. Every bit of data, every recording, every analysis. We're going home." The three of them worked through the day, preparing their findings for Earth Command. Lisa made dozens of copies of the alien signal, afraid that this first proof of alien life might be lost. Alex wrote detailed reports about the signal's mathematical structure and what it revealed about alien technology. As Titan's Watch prepared to leave its position and head for Earth, Lisa took one last look at the empty space where the signal had come from. She wondered if anyone else was out there, listening to the silence and wondering what had happened to their friends. The universe suddenly felt much larger and much more dangerous than it had yesterday. Admiral Susan Cole stood in front of the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. The United Earth Defense Council meeting room in Geneva was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth, presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists filled the seats, all staring at the large screen behind her. Susan had been in the military for 30 years, but she had never felt pressure like this. In her hands, she held the first proof that humans were not alone in the universe. She also held proof that something was killing entire civilizations. "Ladies and gentlemen," Susan began, her voice steady despite her nerves. 3 days ago, our monitoring station intercepted this signal from deep space." She pressed a button, and the alien signal filled the room. The strange musical tones and mathematical patterns echoed off the walls. Even though most people in the room had read the reports, hearing the actual alien voice made it real in a way that words could not. President Nathan Brooks sat in the front row, his face pale as he listened. He had been briefed on the situation, but the sound of actual alien communication still shocked him. Around the room, other leaders whispered to each other in dozens of languages. When the signal ended, the room fell silent. Susan waited for the full impact to sink in before continuing. "This transmission came from the Kepler 442 system, 40 light years from Earth. Our analysis team has confirmed that this is a genuine distress call from an alien civilization. The signal contained the mathematical proofs, star maps, and population, data showing billions of intelligent beings. She clicked to the next slide, showing Dr. Alex Rodriguez's analysis of the signal's breakdown. The transmission lasted 6 days before cutting off abruptly. Based on the energy signatures and the way the signal degraded, we believe we witnessed the complete destruction of this civilization. General Frank Miller, the head of Earth's military forces, stood up from his seat. He was a tall man with scars from the resource wars of the 2040s. Admiral Cole, do we know who attacked them? Susan nodded grimly. Dr. Rachel Kim, our leading expert on theoretical alien contact, has analyzed the data. Dr. Kim? Dr. Kim was a small woman with kind eyes, but her voice was serious as she addressed the council. Based on the signal patterns and the method of attack, we're dealing with what appears to be a nomadic species. The aliens who sent the distress call referred to their attackers using a mathematical symbol. That roughly translates to those who consume. We're calling them the hunters. She brought up a holographic display showing the Kepler 442 system. The hunters didn't just attack one planet. They systematically destroyed 3 worlds that supported life. The pattern suggests they stripped each planet of resources before moving to the next target. President Brooks raised his hand. Dr. Kim, how do we know they're not just defending themselves? Maybe the aliens who sent the distress call were the aggressors. Dr. Kim shook her head. The mathematical sequences in the distress call show no signs of military technology or aggressive intentions. The alien civilization was peaceful, focused on science and art. The hunters, on the other hand, show clear signs of being a military-focused species designed for conquest and consumption. A representative from China stood up. What threat do these hunters pose to Earth? Susan answered that question herself. Based on their movement patterns, the hunters are heading toward denser regions of space, regions that include our solar system. Additionally, Earth has been broadcasting radio signals for over a century. Any species with advanced technology would be able to detect us. The room erupted in worried conversations. Representatives argued in dozens of languages, while Susan waited for order to return. President Brooks stood up, and the room gradually quieted. Admiral Cole, what are our options? Susan had prepared for this question, but she still dreaded giving the answer. Mr. President, we have 3 choices. First, we can do nothing and hope the hunters ignore Earth. Second, we can try to hide by shutting down all radio transmissions and space activities. Third, we can prepare for war. General Miller slammed his hand on the table. The first 2 options are suicide. If we do nothing, we'll end up like the aliens who sent that distress call. If we try to hide, we're just giving the hunters time to grow stronger while we grow weaker. The Russian representative, General Boris Petrov, agreed. General Miller is right. We've seen what happens to civilizations that can't defend themselves. The hunters consumed 3 planets in one system. How many other civilizations have they destroyed that we don't know about? Dr. Kim tried to offer a different perspective. Perhaps we could try to communicate with them. Not all alien species have to be hostile. They are hostile, Susan said firmly. The evidence is clear. The hunters specialize in extermination, not conquest. They don't want to rule other species. They want to consume them. President Brooks looked around the room at the faces of world leaders. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth faced the same threat. How long do we have? Susan consulted her notes. Based on their movement pattern and the time between attacks, we estimate 18 months before they reach our sector of space. Maybe less if they have faster ships than we think. The Brazilian representative asked, what kind of military force would we need? General Miller answered, the largest fleet humanity has ever assembled. Every nation would need to contribute ships, weapons, and personnel. We're not just talking about defending Earth. We're talking about stopping an enemy that has the power to destroy entire solar systems. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives argued that humanity wasn't ready for interstellar war. Others pointed out that they might not get another chance to prepare. Finally, President Brooks called for order. The question before us is simple. Do we stand together as one species, or do we face extinction separately? The vote was unanimous. Every nation on Earth agreed to contribute to the defense fleet. Admiral Cole felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders as President Brooks signed the authorization. Admiral, you have the full resources of Earth at your disposal. Build us a fleet that can stop these hunters. Susan saluted. Mr. President, we'll need every ship, every weapon, and every person we can get. This won't be like the wars we've fought before. We're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for the right of humanity to exist. Dr. Kim approached Susan after the meeting ended. Admiral, there's something else. The alien signal contained references to other civilizations. The species that sent the distress call wasn't the first one the hunters attacked. There are other survivor groups out there, scattered across the galaxy. Susan nodded grimly. Then we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for everyone the hunters haven't killed yet. As the world leaders filed out of the meeting room, Susan stared at the star map on the wall. Somewhere out there, the hunters were moving toward Earth, consuming everything in their path. But now humanity knew they were coming. She picked up her communication device and began giving orders. This is Admiral Cole. Operation Unity is now active. All fleet commanders report to Proxima Centauri immediately. We have a war to prepare for. The room emptied, but Susan remained, studying the alien signal data one more time. She thought about the civilizations that had died and the ones that might still be alive, waiting for someone to help them. Humanity was about to find out if they were strong enough to be that help. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, watching the greatest sight in human history unfold before him. The Proxima Centauri staging area buzzed with activity as ships from every nation on Earth gathered for humanity's first interstellar war. The fleet was massive beyond anything Ryan had imagined. Over 300 ships filled the space around the staging station, from tiny fighter craft to enormous battleships. Each vessel represented years of construction and the best technology humanity could build. Captain, called Lieutenant Monica. Bell from the engineering station. We're receiving final ship counts from the fleet commanders. Ryan nodded, still amazed by what he saw through the bridge windows. The American ships were sleek and fast, built for quick strikes and advanced electronics. The Russian vessels looked like flying fortresses, covered in armor and bristling with weapons. Chinese ships seemed to shimmer and bend light, using stealth technology that made them hard to see. How many ships total? Ryan asked. Monica checked her display. 312 ships, sir. 47 nations contributing vessels and crew. Ryan shook his head in wonder. For most of human history, these same nations had fought each other in bloody wars. Now they were united against a common enemy that threatened all of humanity. His communication officer, Lieutenant Tony Garcia, looked up from his station. Captain, Admiral Cole wants to speak with all ship commanders in 1 hour. Full briefing on enemy capabilities and battle plans. Understood? Monica, how are the weapon upgrades coming? Monica Bell had been working for weeks to modify human weapons for fighting an unknown alien enemy. She was a brilliant engineer, but this was the hardest challenge of her career. We're making progress, sir. The problem is that all our weapons were designed for fighting other humans. We don't know how effective they'll be against alien technology. She brought up a holographic display showing the fleet's weapon systems. We've upgraded the railguns to fire at higher velocities. The nuclear missiles have been fitted with new warheads that should penetrate alien armor. And we've developed drone swarms that can coordinate attacks. Ryan studied the display. Human military technology was impressive, but they were about to face enemies who had destroyed entire civilizations. What about defense systems? That's harder, sir. We've reinforced hull armor and improved our shields, but we're basically guessing about what kind of weapons the hunters use. Tony Garcia had been analyzing the alien distress signal for weeks, trying to understand both the victims and their attackers. Captain, I've been studying the energy signatures from the hunter attacks. They seem to prefer directed energy weapons, probably some kind of advanced plasma technology. Can our shields handle plasma weapons? Our newest ships should be able to absorb several hits, but the older vessels ... Tony shrugged. They won't last long in a direct fight. Ryan walked to the window and looked out at the fleet again. Many of those ships would be destroyed in the coming battle. Many of the people serving on them would never see Earth again. But they were humanity's only hope. Admiral Cole's voice came over the ship's communication system. All ship commanders report to the briefing room immediately. We have new intelligence about the enemy. Ryan left the bridge and took a shuttle to the main staging station. The briefing room was packed with captains and admirals from around the world. He recognized some faces from military exchanges and joint exercises, but many were strangers united only by their shared mission. Admiral Cole stood at the front of the room, looking tired but determined. Behind her, a large screen showed the latest intelligence reports. Ladies and gentlemen, we have learned more about our enemy. 3 hours ago, our long-range scouts detected hunter ships in the Wolf 359 system, only 7 light-years from Earth. Room fell silent. Wolf 359 was much closer than anyone had expected the hunters to be. The good news is that we now have visual confirmation of hunter technology. The bad news is that they're more advanced than we hoped. The screen showed images of the hunter fleet. The ships were unlike anything in human design. They seemed to be part machine and part living creature, with hulls that shifted and changed shape. Some ships appeared to be eating debris from destroyed planets, growing larger as they consumed matter. The hunters are a nomadic species that consumes the resources of entire star systems. They don't just take useful materials. They strip planets down to their cores, leaving nothing behind. Admiral Cole clicked to the next image, showing a planet that had been completely destroyed. Where a world had once existed, only a cloud of dust and metal remained. This is what happened to the 4th planet in the Wolf 359 system. The hunters consumed it completely in less than a week. Captain Sarah Davis from the European fleet raised her hand. Admiral, do we know how many ships they have? Our scouts counted over 1,000 vessels of various sizes. They seem to build new ships by consuming the materials from destroyed worlds. Ryan felt his stomach drop. The human fleet was outnumbered more than 3 to 1 by an enemy that could literally eat planets to build more ships. General Miller, who had come from Earth for the briefing, stood up. Admiral Cole, what's our strategy against those odds? We can't win a direct battle, Admiral Cole admitted. But we don't have to. The hunters' greatest strength is also their weakness. They depend on consuming resources to maintain their fleet. If we can disrupt their supply lines and damage their ability to process materials, we can stop them. She brought up a tactical display showing the planned battle formation. The fleet will divide into 3 groups. The first group will engage the main hunter fleet in direct combat, drawing their attention. The second group will attack their resource processing ships. The third group will target their command vessels. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only one that gave humanity a chance. Dr. Kim, who had been analyzing alien technology, added, "More information. We've discovered that the hunters use a form of biological technology. Their ships are partially alive, which means they can adapt and repair themselves. But it also means they can be poisoned." Ryan perked up. Poisoned how? We're loading selected ships with nuclear waste from Earth's old reactors. The radiation should disrupt their biological systems if we can get close enough. It was a suicide mission, and everyone in the room knew it. The ships carrying the nuclear waste would have to ram the hunter vessels to deliver the payload. Admiral, Cole looked around the room at the faces of humanity's finest officers. I won't lie to you. Most of us won't survive this battle. But we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who will ever be born. We're fighting for the right of intelligence to exist in this galaxy. The briefing continued for 2 more hours, covering battle plans, communication protocols, and emergency procedures. When it ended, Ryan returned to his ship with a heavy heart. Monica was waiting for him on the bridge. How bad is it, sir? Bad? We're outnumbered 3-1 by an enemy that can eat planets. What are our orders? Ryan looked out at the fleet one more time. In a few hours, they would jump to hyperspace and head for what might be humanity's last battle. We're going to stop them, Monica, whatever it takes. The USS Vengeance and the entire human fleet began final preparations for departure. Weapons were loaded, shields were charged, and crews said their final goodbyes to Earth. Ryan sent a message to his family, knowing he might never send another one. Then he returned to the bridge and gave the order that would change human history forever. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going to war. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and Ryan Mitchell felt his heart stop. Through the bridge windows of the USS Vengeance, he saw a vision of hell that would haunt him forever. 3 planets burned, in their orbits around the dying star. What had once been worlds supporting billions of lives were now glowing balls of molten rock and twisted metal. The destruction was so complete that it took several seconds for Ryan's mind to accept what he was seeing. My God, whispered Monica Bell from her engineering station. They destroyed everything. The fleet spread out across the system, each ship's crew staring in horror at the devastation. Massive chunks of debris floated through space, the remains of cities and civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. Some pieces were so large they had their own gravity, pulling smaller fragments into twisted sculptures of destruction. Admiral Cole's voice came over the communication system, steady despite the shock everyone felt. All ships begin scanning for survivors and intelligence. We need to understand what happened here. Commander Amy Foster led a squadron of small ships toward the closest planet. She was an experienced pilot who had seen combat in the asteroid mining wars, but nothing had prepared her for this. Her ship, the Falcon, moved carefully through the debris field surrounding what had once been a beautiful world. Falcon to fleet. Command, Amy reported, her voice tight with emotion. I'm seeing evidence of massive orbital structures. These weren't just planets with life on them. These were advanced civilizations with space-based cities and industrial platforms. She guided her ship closer to a piece of debris that caught her attention. It was clearly artificial, made from materials that didn't exist in nature. The surface was covered with symbols and patterns that spoke of intelligence and artistry. Fleet Command, I'm finding intact structures. Some of these debris pieces they're beautiful, like artwork or monuments. Dr. Kim's voice came through the communication channel from the main fleet. Commander Foster, can you collect samples? We need to understand their technology and culture. Amy and her team spent hours carefully examining the wreckage. They found pieces of what might have been homes, schools, and places of worship. Every fragment told the story of a peaceful civilization that had been brutally destroyed. The breakthrough came when Tony Garcia, analyzing signals from his position on the USS Vengeance, detected a faint energy signature from the planet's surface. Captain Mitchell, I'm picking up something on the 3rd planet. It's weak, but it looks like a power source that's still active. Ryan immediately contacted Admiral Cole. "Admiral, we may have found something alive down there." The decision to investigate was dangerous. The planet's surface was still hot from the attack, and the atmosphere was filled with toxic gases. But if they were survivors, humanity had to try to help them. Amy Foster volunteered to lead the rescue mission. Her team equipped their ships with radiation shielding and life support systems designed for the worst conditions. As they descended through the poisonous atmosphere, they saw the true scale of the destruction. Entire continents had been melted into glass. Mountain ranges were flattened. Oceans had boiled away, leaving behind salt deserts that stretched to the horizon. The planet looked like it had been attacked by the forces of nature itself. The energy signature led them to a deep crater where something metallic gleamed beneath layers of ash and debris. Amy's team carefully excavated the object, revealing a structure that had somehow survived the planet's destruction. "It's some kind of shelter," Amy reported. "The design is completely alien, but it's clearly meant to protect whoever is inside." The structure was made from a crystalline material that seemed to bend light around itself. Strange symbols covered its surface, pulsing with faint energy. Amy's team worked for hours to figure out how to open it without damaging whatever was inside. When they finally broke through, they found a being unlike anything humans had ever seen. It was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. Its eyes were large and dark, filled with intelligence and terrible sadness. The alien was dying. Its life support systems had been running for weeks, slowly failing as the planet died around it. But when it saw the human rescue team, something changed in its expression. Hope Dr. Kim had been right about the universal nature of mathematics. The alien began communicating immediately, using numbers and symbols projected from its crystalline skin. Despite the language barrier, its message was clear. Amy's team worked frantically to stabilize the alien's condition and get it back to the fleet. They called the being Echo because of the harmonic way it communicated, creating musical tones that seemed to carry meaning beyond words. Once Echo was safely aboard the USS Vengeance, Dr. Kim began the delicate process of communication. Using the mathematical principles from the original distress signal, she slowly built a vocabulary that both species could understand. Echo's story was one of horror and warning. Its people, the Cathara, had been a peaceful civilization focused on art, science, and philosophy. They had detected the hunters approaching their system and tried to communicate, hoping to find peaceful coexistence. The hunters had responded by systematically destroying everything the Cathara had built over millennia. But Echo revealed something that chilled every human who heard it. The hunters weren't just raiders or conquerors. They were refugees from a dying galaxy, consuming entire civilizations to fuel their journey to a new home. They come from the void between galaxies, Echo explained through mathematical harmonics that Dr. Kim translated. Their own galaxy is dead, consumed by something even worse than they are. They flee toward the center of our galaxy, eating everything in their path to power their exodus. Even worse, Echo confirmed humanity's greatest fear. The hunters had detected Earth's radio signals decades ago. They knew exactly where humanity lived, and Earth was already on their target list. But Echo also brought hope. It had detailed knowledge of hunter technology and tactics. The Cathara had fought back, and while they had ultimately lost, they had learned the hunters' weaknesses. They depend on consumption, Echo explained. Their ships are part machine, part living organism. They grow by eating matter and energy, but this also makes them vulnerable to certain forms of attack. Dr. Kim worked with Echo to understand the hunters' biological technology. They discovered that the alien ships could be disrupted by introducing incompatible materials into their consumption process. The nuclear waste plan might actually work. Echo also revealed that the hunters were already moving toward their next target, the Tau Ceti system, where another young civilization was completely unaware of the approaching danger. Admiral Cole gathered her senior officers for an emergency meeting. According to Echo, the hunters will reach Tau Ceti in less than a week. That civilization has no idea what's coming. Ryan studied the tactical displays showing the hunter fleet's projected path. Do we try to warn them? There's no time, Admiral Cole replied. By the time we could send a message and get a response, the attack would already be over. Our only option is to intercept the hunters before they reach Tau Ceti. General Miller, participating in the meeting by long-range communication, was blunt about their chances. Admiral, we're talking about fighting 1,000 ships with just over 300. And we've seen what they can do to entire planets. Echo, speaking through Dr. Kim's translation equipment, offered its perspective. The hunters are powerful, but they are not invincible. They have grown overconfident after consuming so many defenseless worlds. They do not expect real resistance. Amy Foster, still shaken by what she had seen on the planet's surface, spoke for many of the fleet's officers. We can't just let them destroy another civilization. If we don't stop them at Tau Ceti, they'll keep moving toward Earth. Admiral Cole made the decision that would define humanity's role in the galaxy. We intercept them at Tau Ceti. We fight them there, and we stop them there. As the human fleet prepared to leave the graveyard of the Kethara civilization, Echo made one final contribution. It provided detailed scans of hunter ship designs and tactical information that could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Ryan stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, watching the dead planets of Kepler 442 disappear behind them. Somewhere ahead, the hunter fleet was approaching another unsuspecting world, ready to repeat the same terrible destruction. But this time, they would find humans waiting for them. The human fleet arrived at the Tau Ceti system, just as the hunter armada began its attack. Ryan Mitchell stared through the bridge windows of the USS Vengeance at a sight that defied everything he thought he knew about warfare. The hunter fleet was massive beyond imagination. Over 1,000 ships of varying sizes moved through space like a swarm of metallic insects. But these weren't normal ships. They seemed alive, their hulls pulsing and shifting as they consumed debris from the outer planets they had already begun to strip mine. Captain, Monica Bell called from her engineering station, her voice tight with fear. I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. Those ships are literally eating the asteroid belt and converting the matter into new weapons. Through the communication system, Admiral Cole's voice reached every ship in the human fleet. All vessels, this is it. We knew this day would come. Today, we find out what humanity is truly capable of. The Tau Ceti civilization had built beautiful crystal cities in orbit around their home planet. The structures sparkled like jewels in the light of their sun, clearly the work of an advanced and peaceful species. But they had no military defenses. They were completely helpless against the approaching hunters. Ryan watched in horror as hunter ships began consuming the outer orbital platforms. The alien structures, which had probably taken centuries to build, were destroyed in minutes. Worse, he could see smaller ships trying to evacuate civilians, but they were too slow and too few. Admiral Cole to all ships, came the voiceover. The communication channel. The hunters are adapting to our presence faster than expected. We need to implement the poison protocol immediately. The poison protocol was humanity's desperate gambit. Selected ships had been loaded with radioactive waste from Earth's old nuclear reactors. The plan was to ram these ships into the hunter vessels, introducing materials that their biological systems couldn't process. Captain Sarah Davis volunteered her ship, the European destroyer HMS Unity, for the first suicide run. All ships, this is Unity. We're beginning our attack run. Tell Earth we did our duty. Ryan watched as the Unity accelerated toward the largest hunter ship, a massive biomechanical creature that was in the process of consuming an entire moon. The hunter vessel's defensive systems activated, sending streams of plasma energy toward the approaching human ship. The Unity's shields held for precious seconds before failing. The ship's hull began to melt under the plasma bombardment, but Sarah Davis kept flying straight toward her target. At the last second, she transmitted a message to the fleet. For humanity. The Unity struck the hunter ship and exploded in a brilliant flash of nuclear fire. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive hunter vessel began to convulse and change color. The radioactive material was spreading through its biological systems like poison through a bloodstream. The hunter ship started to collapse on itself, its living hull unable to process the toxic nuclear waste. Other nearby hunter vessels moved away from their dying companion, clearly recognizing the threat. It worked, Monica shouted. The poison is effective against their biotechnology. But Admiral Cole had no time to celebrate. All ships with poison payloads begin your attack runs. Everyone else provide cover fire and keep the hunters distracted. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. Human ships darted between the massive hunter vessels like tiny fish attacking whales. Railgun fire and nuclear. Missiles lit up the darkness of space, while the hunters responded with weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Ryan found himself in command of the main battle group as ship after ship sacrificed itself to deliver poison payloads to hunter vessels. Each successful attack brought down one of the massive bioships, but the cost was terrible. The human fleet was being destroyed one vessel at a time. Tony Garcia, working frantically at his communication station, made a crucial discovery. Captain, I'm detecting a pattern in their communications. The hunter ships are all connected to 3 command vessels in the center of their formation. If we can take out those ships, the rest of the fleet might lose coordination. Ryan looked at the tactical display. The 3 command ships were heavily protected, surrounded by dozens of smaller hunter vessels. Getting close enough to poison them would require sacrificing most of the remaining human fleet. Admiral Cole, Ryan transmitted, we've identified their command structure. 3 ships in the center are controlling the entire fleet. Admiral Cole's response was immediate. All remaining ships converge on the command vessels. This is our only chance. Echo, speaking through Dr. Kim's translation equipment from the medical bay, provided crucial information. The command ships contain the collective intelligence of the hunter species. If they are destroyed, the remaining ships will become confused and vulnerable. Amy Foster, leading what remained of her reconnaissance squadron, made a desperate run toward the command ships. Her fighters were small and fast, but the hunter defenses were overwhelming. One by one, her pilots sacrificed themselves to clear a path. Foster to fleet, Amy transmitted as her ship took critical damage. I'm going in. Tell my family I love them. Her fighter, loaded with the last of the nuclear waste, streaked toward the central command vessel. Hunter plasma weapons tore through her ship's hull, but Amy kept flying. At the last second, she ejected from her fighter, sending it careening into the command ship while she drifted in space in her damaged escape pod. The explosion was massive. The Hunter command ship writhed and twisted as the nuclear poison spread through its systems. Around the battlefield, other Hunter ships suddenly stopped their coordinated attacks and began moving randomly, clearly confused without their central control. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Of the 312 ships that had entered the battle, fewer than 50 remained functional. The USS Vengeance was heavily damaged, its hull breached in multiple places, and its weapons systems offline. Ryan surveyed the battlefield from his ruined bridge. Thousands of good people had died in the last few hours, but they had accomplished something extraordinary. The hunter fleet was in chaos, many of their ships poisoned and dying. Their command structure destroyed. Monica, working frantically to restore power to their damaged systems, looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations from the surviving hunter ships. They're retreating." The remaining hunter vessels were indeed pulling back, moving away from Tau Ceti toward the edge of the system. But as they retreated, one of the damaged command ships sent out a signal that made Tony Garcia's face go pale. "Captain, you need to hear this," Tony said, playing the intercepted transmission. The signal was clearly directed toward Earth, even without understanding the hunter language. The intent was obvious. It was a targeting beacon, marking Earth's location for other hunter fleets to find. Admiral Cole's voice, weary but determined, came over the communication system. "All ships, prepare for immediate departure to Earth. The hunters know where we live now, and they're calling for reinforcements." As the surviving human ships limped away from Tau Ceti, Ryan looked back at the battlefield one more time. The Tau Ceti civilization had been saved, their crystal cities still sparkling in the light of their sun. But Earth now faced a threat. That would make this battle look small. Echo, now recovered enough to move around the ship, joined Ryan on the bridge. Through Dr. Kim's translation, it shared one final piece of information. "The hunters you fought here were just a scouting force," Echo explained. "Their main fleet numbers in the tens of thousands. They are coming to your home system, and they will not make the same mistakes twice." Ryan nodded grimly. The battle at Tau Ceti had been won, but the war for humanity's survival was just beginning. 6 months later, Ryan stood on the bridge of the new USS Defiance, the flagship of Earth's rebuilt defense fleet. The shipyards around Earth worked day and night to build vessels designed specifically for fighting the hunters. Human technology had advanced rapidly, incorporating lessons learned from the battle at Tau Ceti and knowledge shared by Echo and the rescued Tau Ceti survivors. Admiral Cole, now bearing the scars of her time in space combat, addressed the United Earth Assembly one final time before the new fleet's departure. "The galaxy is vast and dangerous," she said, "but we have learned that we are not helpless. A sacrifice of our people at Tau Ceti bought us time to prepare, time to grow stronger, and time to help other civilizations that the hunters have marked for destruction." The new Guardian fleet consisted of over 1,000 ships, each one incorporating the best human technology and alien knowledge. More importantly, it included vessels from the Tau Ceti civilization and other species that had survived hunter attacks. As the Guardian fleet prepared to depart for the galaxy's edge to establish early warning stations, Echo stood beside Amy Foster on the bridge of the command ship. Amy had survived her ejection at Tau Ceti and now commanded a squadron of mixed human and alien vessels. "Your species has done something remarkable," Echo told her through the translation device. "You turned the moment of first contact into a moment of salvation, not just for yourselves, but for every species in this region of the galaxy." Amy watched Earth's sun disappear behind them as the fleet entered hyperspace. "We learned something important in that battle. We're